brokers might know who that company is upon sight, but would a consumer know? No. And so the commission is here to protect consumers from whom? Y'all. No. All right, so just make sure that the whole company's name is present in the advertisement. But that was an awesome question. Never had that question before either. All right, so how long must records be retained? 3 years. And let's go back to our scenario quiz number 1. And this is a perfect segue into this. It says, per commission rule, the transaction records must be retained until for the buyer agency firm. So when is the end date for the record? For the buyer agency firm?
3 years from termination of the agreement.
Great, thank you, Ms. Joanne. Ms. Joanne said 3 years from the termination of the buyer agency agreement. So the records must be retained until May 10th, 2022 for the buyer agency firm. Now let me throw this caveat out here. If you are a big of your own firm and you want more restrictive policies, you can put those in place. I'm just telling you what license law and commission says as it pertains to when you have permission to get rid of those files. You won't have permission until after May 10th of 2022. If you want to hold on to those files until after your death, so your predecessor can have them, that is totally up to you. Totally up to you. That's probably what I would do. You don't delete them until after you die, if I'm dead. Okay? All right, so what about the listing firm? Y'all start laughing at me. What about the listing firm? All right, great. 3 years from 8/5. 3 years from 8/5. And so the listing firm has their retention up until August the 5th of 2022. Again, if they want to hold it longer, they can. So 3 years is the length of time that records must be retained from the termination of the agreement, a consummation of a contract, and or the disbursement of funds. That's when the clock starts to tick. And that's in the retention of records rule. So other key points about record retention: brokers must provide the copies of documents within 3 days of receipt. Now, one thing that you don't see that the rule says, 3 days of receipt doesn't say 3 business days. The rule says 3 days. So if you enter into a buyer agency agreement with someone on Friday at 6:30, Saturday at 6:30, Sunday at 6:30, Monday by 6:30, those records should be scanned in to Doc Loop, Zoom Loop, Legal Zoop, whatever you guys use. I don't know because I'm not a practicing broker. But whatever document management system you use, that file needs to be in there by Monday at 6:30. So I've had brokers say, well, Kizzy, what if I'm a big of a firm that has 248 agents? How can I keep up with all of these brokers submitting documentation to the firm in a timely manner? Now, the commission doesn't dictate how many brokers you have under your affiliation. So you have to be rational and determine how many you can handle. And if you can't handle 248 by yourself, you can delegate authority to more experienced brokers to assist you in wrangling the cats. Or you decide that you can only be the big of yourself and one other person maybe. But it's 3 days of receipt, okay? For text messages, for emails, don't throw rocks, I'm just a messenger. Text messages, emails, any other type of transactional documents. And I saw a hand over here in the corner, Mr. Joe.
Being a sole proprietor, you don't have to put it in the cloud or any of these other weird places and stuff, right? You just keep a paper copy.
All right, thank you, Mr. Joe. Mr. Joe said, being a sole proprietor, you know, where's the cloud? You don't have to put it in the cloud. You can just keep a paper copy of whatever you want to keep. And that is correct, Mr. Joe and everyone. It is up to you because that's a firm policy. Firm policy dictates how you keep your transactional records. Only you decide. The only thing the rule says, you have them readily producible when the commission comes a-knocking without prior notice. Okay? So if those documents are in the cloud, you should be able to download them from the cloud and print them out right quick. Or put your thumbnail in and print them out right quick. Because they will come a knocking one day or another, not because a complaint was necessarily filed against you. We do spot audits around the state of North Carolina as well. We have auditors and investigators that do just that. So however you decide to have them stored is totally within your purview as a firm policy. And the commission may visit and request records at any time without prior notice. So no, we're not going to call you on Monday and say, we're going to be in Ocean Island on Thursday around 1:30. Can you have 3 transactional file records ready for us when we come? No, we're not going to do that. We're just going to knock on your door at 1:37. You don't like that, Mr. Joe?
No, you can't. Not for mine.
We can't knock on your
Not
door?
Lake Royale. You gotta have special permission.
Okay, we know the designated. So this is the thing about the commission. You know, they carry badges and stuff, so we know that the little rent-a-cop is at the guard shack and the trail. We know that. We're gonna show some documents.
Oh, if you got badges, yeah, you're okay.
I know we're okay. But we know about the guard shack and the trail. All right. But great question, Mr. Joe, and I hope everyone understands that wherever you decide to keep your records is totally up to you. As long as they're what? Readily available, accessible with the commission when they come without prior notice. So we reviewed advertising, we reviewed record retention. So A and R are 2 of the 5 duties that a broker in charge has under the broker in charge rule of 58A0110. Another A is agency, and this is one of my most favorite sections, agency. It's only because it's great teachable moments. And a lot of people are scared of agency, and I don't know why. Why do you think people are scared to disclose to work on a real estate agent's brochure?
I'm not sure how to explain it.
They're not sure how to explain it. That is a great plausible excuse. No reason. It is. It really is. People feel like if I explain this to an individual, they're going to think they have to work with me. They're going to think they are under contract, even though the font is 6 on that brochure and says this is not a contract. Most people, everyday people, believe that it would be. And so yes, it would be a great resource as a BIG for you to have some mentoring programs or some training programs available for your brokers that specifically focus on the work on real estate agents brochure so that the brokers are explaining the brochure pursuant to firm policies and in compliance with license law and commission rules as well. It's a great response, Miranda. So I'm going to need for you guys to take out your smartphones because why? We have another Kahoot activity. Say that again, Mr. Bill.
Did you get any prizes this break?
No, I didn't get any prizes at break. I apologize. I was actually answering questions. I'm sure.
She'll buy a cup of coffee.
Oh, I will not. Who says such a thing? All right, so again, you guys are going to get another PIN number. 414-8618. 414-8618, and You Got a Virus is banned.
When you first said it, I was number one, the first one that says D and You Got a Virus. I was like, what you mean?
Right, exactly. See, I was the same way. I was like, wait a minute. I love it. No virus here. But speaking of viruses, we're talking about that, and we're waiting for everybody to log on. Did y'all guys see the gas prices here in Raleigh? Don't y'all love it? For those of you that are traveling out of state, so gas right now is less than $2. Miss Victoria, if it's still thinking, just give it up. So
You
again,
have any money to buy it anymore?
Mr. Richard, let's be optimistic. Please, don't speak that on us. I'm a believer of affirmation, law of attraction. You know, we attract good things. Y'all see how hyper I am? I'm hyper like this every day, aren't I, April? Every day, I'm hyper. Say what? Unless I'm really riding. Then I get serious. Most of the time I'm hyper. I believe if you be good, good things happen to you. All right, and like Miss Victoria, if some of you can't get in, don't stress. I know that you guys are paying attention because you're trying to see what funny thing I'm gonna say next. So, with that, let's look at our agency questions. And again, it's 10 questions, and we're gonna review the answers once we finish all 10. But try your best to get it right. What is the purpose of the Working with Real Estate Agents brochure? It creates an agency relationship once the consumer signs. It explains the types of agency available to a real estate consumer. It determines the consumer will work with the broker. All right, great job. So 51 of you said it explains the type of agency available to a real estate consumer, and that is correct. The purpose of the brochure is to make the consumer aware of the agency options that they could work with a broker with. Now, as a broker, you know what agency options your firm allows you to provide. So, just because your firm might not allow you to practice dual agency doesn't mean you skip over the dual agency section. You still, pursuant to rule, have to review and provide the brochure in its entirety. Why? Because they might be working opposite someone in a transaction that has a dual agent. So you want them to be aware of what they might experience. Okay? So the purpose is to allow the consumer to be knowledgeable about all of the agency options that are available to them. Why? So they can make an informed decision as to how they want you to work for them. All right, Ms. Ellison. To whom must the Working Real Estate Agents brochure be provided and received? All clients, all prospective buyers and sellers, all prospective clients, all prospective residential buyers and sellers. Oh, let's talk about it. All right, so I've heard a little whisper over here. I heard commercial, and I heard property management, I heard residential. So, to whom must the Working with Real Estate Agents brochure be provided? To all prospective buyers and sellers in residential and commercial transactions. All prospective buyers and sellers in residential and commercial transactions. License law and commission rule does not dictate that you provide this Working Real Estate Agents brochure and property management. However, your realtor association might have a version of the brochure for property management, and that's okay. We say residential and commercial, all sales, all prospective buyers and sellers. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are a buyer agent. I am your buyer. You have already went over agency disclosures and everything with me because you are fantastic. And I'm walking behind you like a puppy dog, just knowing that you're going to represent my best interests. We walk into an open house. There is a listing agent at the open house. You have dialogue with them, and they do not go over the Working with Real Estate Agents brochure with me. Have they violated license law and commission rules? How many of you say yes?
So you are following your agent into.
I'm going to use Miss Victoria if that's okay with you. Miss Victoria is my buyer agent. I am her client. She has already reviewed the Working with Real Estate Agents brochure with me. So I have made a choice to allow Miss Victoria to provide exclusive buyer agency representation to me. She says, Kizzy, I have a new home community that I want you to see, an open house. Let's go. I follow along. She walks in the door. There is a listing agent at the open house. She proceeds to talk to Miss Victoria. She does not say anything to me about the Working Real Estate Agents brochure. Is she supposed to? I'm not a prospective client. What did the rule say? All prospective buyers and sellers in residential and commercial transactions. Wow. Right?
Well, where's the first suspension?
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
If she didn't say anything to you, was there any contact even made?
If she didn't say anything to me,
You said she didn't speak to you,
she spoke to Miss Victoria.
but that,
But throughout the conversation, first substantial contact is gonna happen. No later than first substantial contact is what the rule actually says. So as a listing agent or a seller, is it wise for you to go over the workroom real estate agent's brochure? Yes, it is. True story, happened to me. I sold a house, I purchased another house, went to a new home community, knew what I wanted. Buyer agent was with me. I let my girlfriend do it just so she could put some change in her pocket. And I said, I'm just gonna watch you to make sure you follow license, law, and commission rules. That's what I did. True story. However, they started to get into the first question, and this lady was the first question the lady asked was, what is my budget?
Oh my gosh.
What is my budget? And so I just wanted to see what was gonna happen after the fact. There were working with real estate agents brochures out on the table, the foyer table, but she did not go over it with me. I thought that it was a teaching moment. Once we started signing the contract, she did ask, trying to make small talk where I work. I hesitantly told her, and she thought like she was gonna have a heart attack. So it was just a teaching moment, and she was really appreciative for that teaching moment. Because I just went over the rule. I pulled it up on my phone and we went over it a little bit. She said she never goes over the working real estate agent's brochure with anyone. She knows that she has to give it out. She gives it out. So it's the provide part that she was meeting, but the rule says specifically review and provide. Okay. All right, so let's finish our conclusion. All right. Miss Worley is next. When must the working real estate agent's brochure be disclosed? We have initial contact, at first substantial contact, no later than presentation of an offer. None of these. At first substantial contact. All right, you guys were in your happy place again. How many were in their happy place? 6 people. It's okay. It's almost break time, and we're going to do one more question before we go on break. But the working with real estate agent's brochure needs to be provided and reviewed no later than first substantial contact. What triggers first substantial contact? Thank you, Ms. Donna. Confidential information, material information, anything that can be held against them or used against them in negotiations is considered first substantial contact. With the broker or the consumer feeling as though an agency relationship exists. That's another example of first substantial contact when the brochure needs to be disclosed. And we're going to do one more last question before break. And this is just a true or false. Putting the link to the working real estate agent's brochure in the broker's email signature satisfies the commission's requirements. False or true? Alright, so putting a link for the brochure in the body of your email is not enough. It's not enough. The rule specifically says review and provide. Now, if you have someone over the phone and you say, I'm going to send you an email. Can you check your email? Do you have the ability to at this time? I need to review the working real estate agent's brochure with you. You have provided them the information and you've also reviewed it with them. But just telling them to click on the body of the link in the email and read it and let you know if they have any questions, that is not sufficient. You're not complying with license law and commission rules. And we're going to table that discussion until we come back from our second break. Please come back at 3:03.
This past year was better.
That's awesome, because I was like, yeah, that's down my back. Yes. Right, I used to go to like,
I'll probably talk y'all